Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to predict a recession using machine learning. And so one of the reasons I wanted to make this video was because I've been on YouTube and I've been seeing a lot of videos from finance people talking about, whether there's going to be a recession in 2023. And, they talk about things like the inverting yield curve and stuff like that, unemployment. But they always talk about it in intuitive terms, right? Just looking at charts, trying to see if they can see any patterns. But this really sounds like a job for machine learning, right? Why trust a person to interpret this data? Why not use algorithms? Okay, so that's what this video is about. And so this lecture is going to walk you through a notebook that will demonstrate how to do this using machine learning. Okay, so we'll begin by doing some imports. And so as input into our model, we're going to use various possible leading indicators. Okay, and so many of these you've seen before if you've been watching these finance videos on whether or not there's going to be a recession. So we have the yield curve, the unemployment rate, change in real private inventories. We have new private housing permits, percent change in housing prices, and percent change in retail sales. Okay, so retail sales and housing prices, they're going to be trending, kind of like a stock price. So what we're going to do is we're going to compute the percent change from the last year. And the data is going to be quarterly. So you'll see exactly what I mean by that in the following block of code. Okay, and so as you recall, the reason we do the percent change is because it makes the data stay in the same range of values. Okay, we don't want something that's going to be ever increasing because machine learning is not really good at extrapolation. And now, just to show you that the data isn't complete, we're going to look at the head. Okay, so this starts at 1977-0101. But the tail, so this is the latest data goes up to, it only goes up to 2018-04-01. And it's currently 2022, the end of 2022. Okay, so we would expect much more data than this. Okay, so just to test this out, where the problem's coming from, we can look at our code for the first data frame. So the first data frame actually goes up to the end, right? It goes up to 2022, 1001, but there is one data point missing with the CBIC1. So it would actually go up to 701, 2022. But if we look at retail sales, okay, you can see the problem was retail sales. Retail sales only goes up to 2018-04-01. And when we join all the data together and drop the NAN values, it only goes up to this date. Okay, so let's just see for our own curiosity how far this data goes up to. Okay, so this also goes up to 2022-07-01. Okay, so it really was only the retail sales that limits the length of our data set. Okay, so this is the yield curve, unemployment, inventory, housing permits, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we can try to see visually whether this data will help us predict a recession, right? Are these really leading indicators? And one sort of very human thing to do is to look at the trends, right? So if you're looking at the yield curve, you can see the yield curve is actually seems to be increasing before every recession. So it's not so much the value in the yield curve, but maybe the change in the yield curve. And the same thing goes for unemployment, right? The unemployment seems to increase before each recession. And so inventory, it's not exactly clear. Maybe it decreases a little bit, but it does seem to decrease a lot during the recession. So maybe it's not a leading indicator. Okay, housing permits definitely seems to decrease before the recession. And this guy seems to decrease, maybe not every time. And retail sales seems to decrease before every recession, but also it decreases during the recession as well. Okay, so it's tough to say. And for some of these, although we're going to use the raw data, Notice that these are not like stock prices, right? They're not ever increasing. So it's okay to use this data as is, but you still might want to take the difference in order to capture those changes. Okay, but we're not going to do that. You can try it as an exercise. Okay, so the next step is to create a function that will put the inputs and targets together in the same data frame. And so the key part in this function is that we're shifting the recession data, okay? And so you'll see we have this variable called horizon. And so that tells us, given a specific quarter of data from the indicators, how far ahead in quarters are we looking for a recession, okay? And so by default, we're just going to say 1 quarter ahead. Okay, so let's run this. And then let's use the function to get a data frame. And then we will call df.head to look at the result. Okay, so basically this is just we've turned our problem from an economics problem into a machine learning problem. Okay, so even if you did not understand economics, that's okay, right? You can still understand this data through the lens of machine learning, right? We have an input matrix called X, and that contains our model input features. And then we have a target column called Y, which is the recession column. Okay. Now, one challenging aspect of this data set is that we're usually not in a recession, right? So that's a good thing. Most of the time, we are not in a recession, and only very few quarters we are in a recession, okay? So this is an imbalanced data set, which makes it so that metrics like accuracy are not really that great. If all we did is we predict no recession for every quarter, we would have a pretty accurate model just by ignoring all of the actual recession dates. Okay, so we have to look at other metrics like precision, recall, and so forth. Okay, so the next step is to just split our data into X's and Y's, as mentioned earlier. And now let's create a pipeline object. Okay, so the pipeline is very simple. We just have the standard scaler to scale the data, and then we have linear SVC to model the data. Okay, and so I'm going to change this to 100. Okay, so the next step is we could have done something like cross-validation, but this way's fine too. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an experiment basically 100 times. And for each of these 100 times, we're going to do a train test split on the X's and Y's. And we'll also use stratify since the data is imbalanced and we don't want to end up with, let's say, all zeros in the test set or all ones in the test set. So that would be bad when we compute our metrics. And then we just do our usual stuff. We fit the model on the train set, score it on the test set, compute our metrics, and then we append all of those metrics into these lists. And so what we're going to print out eventually is just the average value of the metric over all 100 experiments. Okay, so let's run this. And then let's compute the result. Okay, so you can see how the accuracy is much higher because it's very easy to get a good accuracy on an imbalanced data set. So what we really want to pay attention to is the F1 and the precision and recall. So as an exercise, you might want to consider, what do you care more about, the precision or the recall? Okay, but the precision and recall are not bad, right? It's about 85%, 83%. Okay, so our model does pretty good. We have above an 80% chance of being correct, depending on how you interpret what is correct, whether that's precision or recall. Okay, and so just to demonstrate to you that the data really only goes up to 2018, we can look up the code on stlouisfed.org. And so you can see the data really only goes up to 2018. And so the max looks to be 0401 2018, as we noted in our notebook. Okay, so it's not a matter of Panda's data reader not being able to retrieve the data. The data is really not there. Okay, so perhaps as an exercise, you might want to see if you can track down this data and then redo this notebook using a full data set and predicting whether or not there will be a recession in 2023.